Right, well, good morning. Thanks for inviting me here today. So, my name's Gareth Wood, and you guys are actually my very first audience. You know, I've not really done anything like this before, so it's pretty scary, if I'm honest. But you know, I love watching other people do talks like this. I think it's really inspiring. But one thing that's inspired me to do is to think, yeah, there's no reason why I can't do that myself. A lot of what I'm going to be talking about today, it's about stepping out of your comfort zone. And, you know, that's a scary thing to do, but the more often that we do things like this, it becomes less scary. I mean, it can actually become quite exciting. So I work for a company based in Newcastle called Drummond Central. We're a full-service creative agency, so that means we do everything from design, advertising and digital. So to give you an idea of the kind of stuff that we do, I'm just going to play you our latest show reel, so let's take a look. Great, so maybe some of that you might have seen before, others maybe not. If we've got any football fans in here today, you'll no doubt be familiar with this guy. This is Winstone. He's the guy that pops up during every ad break during half time and tells us to bet in play now for Bet365. Not only is Bet365 one of our biggest clients, they're also the world's biggest online gambling company. We do work for Bet365 that gets shown all across the world in about 3 different languages. Not only that, we've also got some great local clients such as Tyne-and-Wear Metro. You know, either if you love the Metro or you hate it, depending what your experience of using it is, you know, it's a great Northeast brand. In fact, even the Queen's been on the Metro. In fact, here she is on her way back from B&M Bargains in North Shields. She brought this rather nice brown hat. You'll also notice we do quite a lot of animation. In fact, from the video I've just played to you there, most of that was produced in-house by myself. About 13 years ago, I decided to teach myself Cinema 4D and After Effects. And something that started off really as a hobby has become quite a big part of what I do. So what I'd like to talk to you about today is I'm going to give you 5 tips for getting a creative job. These are a few things that I've picked along on the way during my experience and I've found really helpful. So hopefully there'll be something there that you can find useful too. So number 1, do it yourself. You know, I've always been a big believer in doing things myself, you know, whether it's fixing a broken washing machine or, you know, learning 3D animation software, even deciding to stand up in front of you all today. You know, if you've got an idea for something or you can be inspired by something and think, there's no reason why I can't do that myself, you know, that's really important, and, you know, especially if you're hoping to get a job. It's not enough just to turn up every day to school or college and do what's expected of you. That's not going to get you the job that you deserve. You need to be passionate. You need to push yourself. Does anyone know what this film is from? Anyone? Way, very good. Back to the Future. Back to the Future is a fantastic film, one of the greatest films of all time, in my opinion. There's a fantastic line in the film. If you put your mind to it, you can accomplish anything. Now, this film came out in 1985. I was 7 years old at the time, and it was one of my all-time favourite films as a kid. But, this is a great piece of advice, and it's probably one of the earliest pieces of advice I can remember getting, and it's something that's kind of stayed with me all these years. So why is it important to do things yourself? Well, you need to be proactive. You need to do more than what's expected of you, and you need to be passionate. Experiment, try things out, see what works, and learn from your mistakes. And most importantly, have fun. Setting out to achieve something on your own, or figuring how to do something yourself. Not only is that really satisfying, but it's also very enjoyable. But all of these things we used to be great at. When we were all kids, this kind of stuff used to come kind of second nature to us, really. Because kids, when they get inspired to be creative, they'll just get on with it. They don't get bogged down with how they're going to do something, or they don't worry about how it's going to turn out, or how they're going to get permanent marker off the little brother. If they get an idea for something, they'll just get on with it. And, as we get older, we forget how exciting it is to be inspired and just to get on and do something. So when I was a kid, a couple of things I was into was Star Wars and drawing. I also had an early interest in animation. And, I'd spend hours making things like flipbook animations and pop-up books and things like that. I used to borrow my dad's video camera, and I taught myself how to do stop-motion animation. And it was great. It was great fun. It was also really difficult. This is the time before, like, Pinterest and YouTube tutorials. If you wanted to learn how to do stuff like that, there wasn't really any resources out there. A lot of it was just trial and error. It makes me feel old to say this, but I think it's true. You've never had it so good now. You've only got to walk around this facility to see what amazing resources are available right now. So it's important that we use them. Excuse me. I'm guessing that everyone in this room probably has one of these, a smartphone. Whether it's an iPhone or not doesn't really make any difference. The ability to record video in high definition with stereo sound. Not only that, we can edit. We can add music, sound effects, all on something that we'll probably take for granted every day. If you've got one of these, you've got the potential to be a movie director, or to make a documentary, or a comedy series, to shoot music videos, all on something that you carry around with you every day. So do we do any of these things? No, we do selfies. I've honestly got no idea what is going on there. Why she's got the foot in the sink either. Most of us have access to a computer with literally thousands and thousands of powerful software applications. Software so powerful that we can pretty much create anything we want. And a few years ago, this stuff used to be expensive. To have a computer powerful enough to run some of these programs, that was restricted to high-end PCs that were worth thousands and thousands of pounds. Most of it now can be run on just a regular home desktop. And all this stuff used to be difficult to learn. It used to be a specialist skill. You'd have to spend years and years learning how to do this. But the great thing about the internet is we can teach ourselves. If I run into a problem at work using one of these programs, let's say I want to achieve a certain look in Photoshop, or how to use a tool in After Effects, I can go online and I can find the answer within seconds. And I guarantee that there'll be some 10-year-old American kid on YouTube that will tell me exactly step by step how to achieve that. So what's stopping you? You've got all this amazing stuff. Just get on and use it. But all of this kind of creates a problem. If we've decided that anyone in the world can do this stuff, and there's 10-year-old kids on America that are better at me in After Effects, that kind of creates a problem. It's not a specialist skill anymore. And how do we get over that? Well, we need to stand out. So when I was a student, I did a 3-year degree course in art and design. So the first couple of years we spent learning things like typography, layouts, colour, the kind of things that make up a good design. And by the end of the second year, we were all pretty good at it. We could take something and design it, and it looks okay. And then the third year came on. The third year was run very different. It was run by a guy called Ray Gregory, who was absolutely terrifying. I was hoping I could find a picture to show you, but if you can imagine Darth Vader, but with a moustache, that's pretty much what he looked like. And yeah, he was terrifying. The first day of the third year, he gathered us all up in the studio and said, right, I've looked at all your work and you're all shite. None of you is going to get a job with work like that. And we couldn't understand it because, we can design things. We know layout and typography and all this stuff. All that stuff doesn't really matter unless you've got an idea. So one thing he taught us was the importance of having an idea behind your work. To make your work memorable, people need something else rather than just something that looks pretty. If you can spark off an emotion in someone, maybe you do a poster and it makes someone laugh, or it stops them in the tracks and makes them think of something. Not only does that make your work more memorable, but it makes you more memorable as well. So get criticism. One of the most difficult parts of coming into a creative job is having to deal with criticism. Because with creativity, there's no right or wrong answer. It becomes subjective. And, all of a sudden, everyone's got their own opinion. So that's quite difficult to deal with. But, criticism, it doesn't always have to be negative. Maybe someone comes along and notices something that you haven't thought of before, something that actually improves what you're doing. But learning to deal with criticism is a big thing if you're thinking of doing this for a career. So how do we get criticism? Well, you need to get used to putting your work out there for people to look at and say whether it's good or bad. A few years ago, there was a really popular trend on things like Instagram and Tumblr called Make Something Cool Every Day. And the idea was, you made a promise to yourself to put something up new every day that you'd made. And that could be anything. That could be a photograph or a video or an animation, even an idea that's scribbled on a Post-it note. The fact was you were doing it every day and people could comment on it. Not only does this force you to be creative regularly, because, the more things you do something, you get better at it. But, you can learn to deal with criticism. Maybe someone doesn't like what you posted up on Monday, but it doesn't matter because on Tuesday and Wednesday you'll be posting something else. And it doesn't even have to be every day. You could do this once a week, once a month. It really doesn't matter, as long as you're doing something regularly. One of the great things I've done in the past is, from a Cinema 4D background, there's a great site called Grayscale Gorilla, and they give tutorials and things like that. It's worth looking at if you're into that. But one thing they do quite regularly is these animation contests called 5-second projects. And the rules are simple. It has to be 5 seconds long. You've got about 2 weeks to do it. This is the most recent one, and it has to be on a theme. So last month's theme was mini golf. The one that I did was called Bounce, I think it was. So when you enter things like this, you know, it doesn't matter if you win or not, or if you get shortlisted. The fact is, you're posting something up, and you'll get feedback. You know, thousands and thousands of people do this, and they'll all be looking at your work and giving you tips and advice of how you can improve. And yeah, I mean, I entered this a couple of years ago. I didn't win. I wasn't shortlisted. But at the end of the day, I ended up with a 5-second piece of animation that I'd made that I could put on my show reel. And even now, you know, 2 years later, I still get emails from Vimeo saying, such and such liked your video, such and such commented on your video. And it was great, you know, I got loads of feedback from something that just took like 2 days to do. The other great thing about doing stuff like this is it gets you used to working to deadlines. Yeah, the problem with working on personal projects is there's no real deadline. You know, you could be working on something forever and it will never get finished. You know, there's a great quote, an artist never really finishes his work, he merely abandons it. Even this presentation I'm giving you now, if I didn't have a deadline for this thing, I could be working on this for another week, another 2 weeks, another month. It would never ever get finished until I actually stood up and did this. So, you know, when you're working on something, just try and get as much stuff as you can out there, and then it's done. You can move on to something else. And finally, one thing I've started to do recently is to compare something that I'm working on to stuff that I really admire. You know, you can learn a lot from doing that. I think the problem is when you're working on something, you'll get so blinkered into what you're doing that you convince yourself that it looks great the way it is. And when you hold it up to something that you actually like, you realize that actually it's not that good. Here's a great example of this. This isn't my cake, by the way. So, okay, if you'd made the cake on the right, you'd be feeling pretty terrible about that right now. You might actually give up making cakes altogether. But you'd quickly realize how you could improve the next cake that you make and the one after that. This process of comparing something against something that looks great is, you can learn a lot from that. One project that I've done recently where I actually did that is we created this little character for Metro. And character animation was something that I'd not really done a lot of before. So when I came to working on this project, I actually went back and redid hours and hours of work that I'd already finished, because I started looking at other great character animation things like Minions and things like that, great 3D animation examples. And I realized that what I'd done didn't look that great. You know, the way he moved just didn't seem right. So I went back and redid it all. And, you know, it ended up improving it a lot. So, you know, just to recap, all of this might seem scary at first. You know, stepping out of your comfort zone isn't an easy thing to do, but it's something that you can learn a lot from. Like I said at the start, something that starts off as scary actually becomes, you start to get used to it. You know, it's a great quote, do one thing every day that scares you. So kind of ask yourself, what will you do? And just to finish off, I'm a massive Star Wars fan, as you can probably tell. And has anyone seen The Empire Strikes Back? Yes, great. There's a great bit in it where Luke begins his training with Yoda, and Yoda asks him to move an entire spaceship using his mind. And he fails. He says, I can't do it, it's impossible, it's just too big. But Yoda convinces him that it's only too big in his mind. That's why he failed. He didn't believe in himself. A lot of the things that we set out to do, we give up straight away because we think, you know, that's beyond my capabilities. I can't do it. And a lot of it's in your mind. If you can convince yourself that you can do something and commit yourself totally to doing it, you know, that's like the hardest part out of the way. So once again, thanks very much, and may the force be with you.